I had already ended the ride. The app said the passenger was dropped off, but he was still sitting behind me, and the car doors were locked. It was around 1:18 a.m. downtown. Bars were closing. Streets were loud but thinning out. I'd been driving for about 5 hours, and this was supposed to be my last ride before heading home. Pickup location was normal. Busy intersection near a strip of clubs. The name on the app was Marcus. Profile picture blank. That's not unusual. A lot of riders don't upload photos. When I pulled up, he was already standing on the sidewalk alone. No one around him. No friends. No one saying goodbye. He got in the back seat without saying anything. Didn't slam the door. Didn't greet me. Just got in. I said, "And hey, how's it going?" No response. I assumed he was drunk. That's common at that hour. The ride was only 12 minutes. Residential address. Nothing unusual. At first. About 2 minutes into the drive, I noticed something in the rearview mirror. He wasn't looking at his phone. He wasn't looking out the window. He was looking directly at me. Not aggressively, just staring. I looked away and focused on the road. People zone out sometimes. I tried to rationalize it. At the next red light, I glanced back again. He hadn't moved. Same posture. Same eye contact. That's when I noticed something else. He hadn't put on a seatbelt. I politely said, "Hey, do you mind buckling up?" Still no response. But after about 5 seconds, he slowly reached across and clicked it in, without breaking eye contact. That's when it started feeling wrong. We were about halfway to the destination when my phone buzzed. New message in the app. From Marcus. "Don't take the main road." I looked at the GPS. It was already routing through the main road. I typed back quickly at a red light. The app chooses the fastest route. Almost immediately, take the side streets. The side streets he was referring to were darker, residential, fewer cameras. I told myself maybe he just didn't want to pass a police checkpoint or something. It happens. So I turned off the main road. The streets got quieter. Streetlights spaced farther apart. Less traffic. That's when he leaned forward slightly, not touching me, just closer, and said quietly, "You ever drive this late every night?" It was the first thing he'd said. His voice was calm. Too calm. I said, "Yeah, most weekends." He leaned back again. Silence. My phone buzzed again. Another message. "You live around here?" My stomach tightened. That wasn't normal rider conversation. I didn't answer. He didn't repeat it out loud, but I could feel him watching me again. We were about 3 minutes from the drop-off location. The GPS suddenly recalculated. New route. The destination pin had moved. Not far, but off the main residential block. Now it was guiding me toward a dead-end street. I said, "Hey, the drop-off changed. Just making sure that's correct." He didn't answer verbally. My phone buzzed. It's correct. The dead-end street had no houses with lights on, no parked cars, just one street light at the very end, and darkness beyond it. That's when he leaned forward again, and quietly said, "You can just stop here." We were still about 200 feet from the pin. I said, "The app wants me to pull up a little further." He said nothing, but I could see his hand resting on the back of my seat now, not gripping it, just resting there. That was the first moment I felt actual fear. I kept driving toward the streetlight. The moment we entered the dead end, something changed. The car behind us turned in too. I hadn't noticed it before. It wasn't there at the intersection. But now headlights were behind me, not passing, just following. My passenger said quietly, "Yeah, stop here." The headlights behind us turned off, completely. We were in near darkness, except for my headlights and that single streetlight. I didn't stop. I drove straight past the destination pin and turned around in one motion. The car behind us turned its headlights back on immediately, My passenger didn't yell, didn't argue. He just said, "That's not the stop." I said, "I'm not stopping here." The car behind us started moving closer. That's when the app ended the ride automatically. It said, "Passenger dropped off." But he was still sitting behind me, and the doors were still locked. He tried the handle once, just once, then leaned back, calm again. I drove straight out of that neighborhood, didn't look in the mirror, didn't stop until I hit a main road with traffic. When I finally looked back, the back seat was empty. The door hadn't opened. I never heard it open. The ride history showed, completed, 5 stars. No complaint. The address on the trip receipt didn't exist when I checked it later. It was just a blank lot. The second ride wasn't in the city. It was quieter, and somehow worse. He said my name before I ever told him what it was, not the name on the app, my full name. And he said it like he'd known me for years. It was 10:37 p.m. when I accepted the ride. Suburban pickup, quiet cul-de-sac, about 15 minutes outside the city. The rider's name on the app was Daniel. 5 stars, no comments. Profile picture of a golden retriever. Nothing unusual. When I turned into the cul-de-sac, I noticed how empty it was. No parked cars on the street. No movement in the houses. Most porch lights were off. The pin showed the pickup at the very end of the circle. He was already outside. Not on the sidewalk. Not near the curb. He was standing halfway up the driveway just outside the shadow of the garage, waiting. I pulled up and unlocked the doors. He didn't wave, didn't signal. He just walked straight to the back seat and got in. Closed the door gently. No greeting. I said, "Hey, how's it going?" Before I could finish the sentence, he leaned forward slightly and said, "Evening, Christopher." Not Chris, not driver. Christopher. That's the name on my driver's license. But on Uber I use Chris M. Passengers only see the first name that appears in the app, and I never introduce myself by my full name. I laughed lightly and said, "Yeah, hey," trying not to make it awkward. Maybe I'd mentioned it once before on another ride. Maybe he guessed, but something about the way he said it felt rehearsed, calm, confident, like he'd been waiting to use it. The destination was 18 minutes away, another residential neighborhood. As we pulled out of the cul-de-sac, I checked the rearview mirror. He wasn't on his phone, wasn't adjusting his seat. He was watching me, not aggressively, just observing. After about 2 minutes of silence, he asked, "How long have you lived around here?" I said, "I don't live here. I just drive the area." He paused for a second, then said, "It's quieter at night." The tone wasn't casual. It sounded like a statement. We passed a small neighborhood park. No lights, swings barely visible in the dark. He leaned forward slightly again. "You ever get nervous driving strangers around?" I shrugged. "Not really." Another pause. "You probably should." He didn't smile, didn't laugh, just leaned back into the seat. The air in the car felt heavier after that. I focused on the road. Streetlights became more spaced out, houses farther apart. The GPS showed the normal route. But then he started giving directions. "Take the next right." The app hadn't said to turn. I hesitated. "It's faster this way," he added. I made the turn. The street was darker than the previous one. No cars parked along the curb, no lights in windows. He gave another direction. "Slow down here." There was nothing ahead. No stop sign. No visible obstacle. I slowed anyway. Then he said something that made my hands tighten on the steering wheel. "You passed your street." I blinked. "What?" "You passed your street." My stomach dropped. "I don't live around here," I said again. He didn't respond, just watched me in the mirror. The GPS suddenly recalculated. New route. The destination pin shifted about half a mile ahead. Same street name, different house number. I said carefully. The address updated. Just confirming that's correct? He replied immediately. It's correct. No hesitation, no explanation. We turned onto a narrower street lined with tall trees. Branches hung over parts of the road. Streetlights flickered between gaps. I checked the mirror again. He was leaning forward, not touching me, just close enough to feel his presence. Then he asked quietly, "You park outside your house?" My chest tightened. That's a weird question. He didn't answer that. Instead, he said, "You really shouldn't." The house at the end of the block had no lights on, driveway empty, windows dark. Before I fully stopped, he said, "You can let me out here." We were still about 25 feet from the driveway. I stopped anyway. He didn't move at first, just sat there. Silence filled the car. Then he leaned forward one last time, close enough that I could hear his breathing clearly. "You should be more careful, Christopher." He opened the door slowly, stepped out, closed it gently. No rush, no anger, just calm. I drove forward immediately, checked the mirror. He wasn't walking toward the house, he wasn't heading to the sidewalk. He was standing in the middle of the street, watching my car, not moving. I turned the corner and lost sight of him. My phone buzzed. The ride had ended. 5 stars. No comment. When I reviewed the trip history later that night, something felt off. The drop-off address didn't exist. The house number wasn't on that street. I checked Google Maps. Nothing. I refreshed the app to look at his profile again. It was gone. No rider history, no profile picture, just a completed trip with no trace. I still drive. But I stopped working suburban cul-de-sacs after that. And I stopped using my full name anywhere online. The third ride wasn't suburban, it wasn't quiet. And it didn't end with someone walking away. It ended with someone running toward my car. The GPS said I had arrived. There was no house, no driveway, no lights anywhere. And then another car pulled in behind me and turned its headlights off. It was 12:47 a.m. when the request came in. 32-minute trip. Pickup pinned just off a rural highway exit. Longer rides usually mean better pay, so I accepted it without thinking too much about the location. When I exited the highway, the environment changed immediately. No gas stations, no stores, no streetlights. Just a narrow 2-lane road with trees lining both sides. The app guided me for about 5 minutes deeper into that stretch until it said, "You have arrived." I slowed to a stop, looked around. There was nothing there. No mailbox, no house numbers, no parked cars, just trees and darkness. I double-checked the map. The pickup pin was sitting directly on the road, not on a driveway, not near a structure, right on the pavement. I messaged the rider. "I'm here." 30 seconds passed, then my phone buzzed. "Pull forward." That was it. No explanation. No, "I'm coming out." Just 2 words. I rolled forward slowly, maybe another 50 feet. The road curved slightly ahead, disappearing into trees. Then I noticed headlights in my rearview mirror. A car had turned onto the road behind me. I hadn't seen it exit the highway. It wasn't behind me before. It pulled in and stopped about 30 feet back. Engine running, headlights on, not passing, not honking, just sitting there. My phone buzzed again. "Keep going." I typed, "I don't see anyone outside." Response came almost instantly. "Just drive." My hands tightened on the steering wheel. I drove another 20 seconds. The car behind me followed at the exact same distance, not getting closer, not falling back, matching me. Then another message. "Stop near the trees." Ahead on the right side of the road, I saw a break in the tree line. Not a driveway, just a dirt path leading into darkness. No house in sight. I didn't stop. I slowed instead. The headlights behind me suddenly shut off. Completely. The road behind me went black. I couldn't see the car anymore. No taillights, no silhouette, just darkness. My heart started pounding. The only light now came from my headlights illuminating the trees ahead. My phone buzzed again. We can see you. We, not I. We. I locked the doors even though they were already locked. Another message. Closer. Closer to what? There was nothing there. Just trees and dirt. Then I heard something. A faint crunch of gravel. Not behind me. Not ahead. To my left, near the driver's side. Close. Too close. I didn't look immediately. I didn't want to confirm what I already suspected. Another message came in. Wrong door. My breathing became shallow. Wrong door. Which meant someone had tried the passenger side first. My phone buzzed again. Driver's side. That's when I forced myself to glance toward the driver's window, and I saw a movement between the trees. A dark figure shifting in and out of my headlight spill. Close enough that if I opened the door, they'd be within arm's reach. I didn't wait for another message. I threw the car into drive and accelerated hard. Gravel kicked up under my tires. As I sped forward, the headlights behind me snapped back on. They were closer now, much closer. The car accelerated. I could see it clearly in the mirror now. Dark sedan, no front plate visible. I didn't look at my phone again. Didn't respond. I just drove. The road curved sharply and eventually reconnected with the highway about a mile ahead. The sedan stayed behind me the entire way, matching speed, not attempting to pass, just there. When I reached the highway ramp, I didn't slow down properly. I merged fast, barely checking for oncoming traffic. The sedan followed onto the ramp. For a moment, I thought they were staying with me. Then, right before merging fully onto the highway, the sedan slowed. It didn't enter the highway. It stopped at the shoulder and just sat there, watching. I didn't reduce speed until I was miles away. About 5 minutes later, I saw a gas station glowing ahead. I pulled in and parked directly under the brightest canopy lights. Engine still running, doors locked, hands shaking. I finally checked the app. The ride had ended. Passenger canceled. No rating, no trip history. I tapped on the rider profile. It was blank, no name, no photo, no previous rides, nothing. Then my phone buzzed again. Not through the Uber app. A regular text message. Unknown number. Just one word. Almost. No punctuation, no explanation. I blocked the number immediately, changed my phone number the next morning, and I stopped accepting any ride pinned in the middle of nowhere. Because I'm not sure what would have happened if I had stepped out of that car. But I know one thing. Whoever sent those messages wasn't alone.